Welcome everyone to our second guest speaker event. We'll get started in a few minutes. Feel free to say hi in the chat.
So welcome to our virtual meeting with Miss Larissa. Good evening. I'm Harshita. Just to introduce myself, I'm one of the co-founders of Humanity Exists Everywhere, and I am absolutely stoked to be here tonight.
Hi, my name is Sarushi, one of the co-founders as well. I'm so excited to be with you guys and have everyone meet Miss Larissa.
So before we begin, I'd like to briefly introduce Humanity Exists Everywhere. Humanity Exists Everywhere is basically a multimedia approach that we created to inform the community about IHL, international humanitarian laws, and its importance.
Now, without further ado, tonight's guest speaker is Miss Larissa, and on behalf of Humanity Exists Everywhere, we welcome you with open arms. Thank you so much for joining us. We are truly honored. We're going to be starting off the discussion, and we will have the opportunity for audience questions towards the end. All right, so that means the floor is open to any questions at any time, so feel free to put them in the chat. Miss Larissa, why don't you begin by introducing yourself?
Yeah, thanks. Can you guys both hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, I just want to start with thanking both of you and your entire team for having me. It is the greatest joy of this work to get to spend time with all of you and see what you're doing regarding IHL and bringing this world to other people. A little bit about myself, as the lovely ladies introduced me, Larissa Hatch, and I am the International Humanitarian Law Youth Action Campaign Program Manager here at National Headquarters. But really my role is to help all of you, like Harshita and Arushi, get to do some of these amazing campaigns. So thank you again for having me. Happy to be here.
Of course. Moving forward, as a child, where did you think you would end up in life?
Well, if you asked 15-year-old Larissa, she thought she was going to be a doctor and go do global health, which I guess if you look at where things ended up, I'm not too far from my original thought of just knowing I wanted to help people. It just kind of evolved into something very different. I really liked science. I still love learning, and I enjoyed the concept of getting to use science and math to serve people. But it wasn't until I started in college volunteering much more aptly on the weekends and spending my time that way that I realized there was different ways to help people, and that my heart was being drawn in a different direction than what was originally intended. And for all of you out there that are exploring what you want to do with your life, or if you're unsure, you're not in the right spot, I challenge you to listen to that little voice and move in that direction. Because if I didn't, I don't think my life would have the amount of joy and privilege that I do in this role, or just in general experiencing the way that I can serve people with the gifts I've been given and the opportunity here at the Red Cross. But so I joined Habitat for Humanity in college, and I spent a lot of my time getting to see what real suffering was. These people who had lost their homes, whether it was in disasters or from poverty or different components of just life experiences, and really getting to stand alongside them and serve with them. I realized that there was a world where people that wanted to make this a lifestyle existed. And I started digging into the nonprofit world. left my undergrad with a degree in nonprofit management and peace and conflicts, which also I think comes full circle now looking at what I'm doing specifically here. But I kind of followed this path of wanting to be a person that was involved in a bigger process of helping other people serve or volunteer. And I started at a small nonprofit and then kind of made my way to the Red Cross. And I'm very happy with what I'm able to do now. And kind of, again, coming full circle, getting to spend time with all of you and youth and young adults around the world to get to see what you guys come up with next, whether it's in this program or in your own lives as young humanitarians.
That's actually really, really cool and inspiring.
So, kind of going off of your whole nonprofits, how did you first get involved in the Red Cross?
My first touch point with the Red Cross was actually when I was 9 years old, and we were camping and we were on a vacation in Virginia Beach area, and a hurricane was coming through, and we had to evacuate. So we went to, at the time, they were setting up evacuation shelters. So these weren't yet like kind of resident style shelters. They were just the overnight ones until people could figure out getting off where we were on this island. And I specifically remember the red vests and the blankets. They look a little different than they do, about 20 years later, but very much that insignia, that Red Cross stood out to me. And these women were coming along with, I think it was apples, bananas, and maybe cereal in the morning, and just helping serve the people that were in this shelter. And I looked at my mom and I said, are these ladies nurses? Like, who are they? And she was like, no, this is the Red Cross, and their job is to just make us feel safe and to help people. And I remember I was 10 years old and I was like, that is wild that in this storm, in this hurricane, people are staying here to take care of other people when really, that's a danger too of them staying there themselves. And that stuck with me throughout my young life, and then figuring out kind of later in life where I wanted to end up. I just think it's pretty circuitous that it came back to me, and I'm able to now give back to the same place that kind of jump-started my servant heart, I guess, to really want to be part of other people's darkest days, which, whether it's in the context of, some of you probably know, right, with the Red Cross, we are there for disasters large and small, and sometimes we have to be nothing else but just that like warm shoulder, or that warm hug next to someone as they're watching their house burn down, or things like that. And I feel like what we do here in the international humanitarian law space is the same thing, but on like a mass level, like we're not doing necessarily the direct contact of what we see in the disaster space so much as telling the story of these bigger global issues and trying to, what am I trying to say here? Like, make sure we're elevating those voices of the people that IHL is trying to protect.
So you did mention that you worked as an IHL program manager. What are just some things that you've learned and some experiences you've had as a part of your job?
Well, the funny thing is, like I said, my background is more in kind of the nonprofit management program side of things. And the way this job, the way I came to this job was, I think, very prolific in that my heart was very much in a place of wanting to serve in any way I was kind of called for. And I love working with all of you. I love working with youth and young adults. I think you have just unlimitless creativity that is inspiring for bigger nonprofit, small and large nonprofits. And the Red Cross is very grateful to have you all. But I didn't know anything of IHL. I never heard the acronym. I'd been previously, before this role, in volunteer services here at the Red Cross. And so I knew of the Youth Action Campaign program, but I didn't really know its breadth and depth and the opportunities that it really had. I just knew I wanted to spend time with these young people, with all of you, to be able to grow this program and make it bigger and better and get IHL to be one of those household American Red Cross acronyms. So I think one of the things I really learned was IHL. My whole team, I think some of you know, we do the IHL Adult Dissemination Program. And that, I think, primarily targets scholarly communities, law schools. Obviously, a lot of lawyers are involved. My whole team, they're all lawyers as well, but I'm not. And I think the coolest thing about this program, and maybe just me as an example, is that you don't have to be a lawyer, that this content is accessible and relatable to anyone, despite like what your background is. So for me, coming into this as someone who, works in the nonprofit field, but doesn't have necessarily that law background, but I do have, we touched upon it, a little bit of peace and conflict studies background. It to me was very interesting to see how this conversation can be distilled to a place where, despite backgrounds, we can all be a part of it. We can bring these conversations to the lunch table or to our tables home at dinner and really try to elevate what's going on and the value of, these protections to make sure that we're doing our very best to protect humanity, human lives. Now we're getting into more things like the environment, which I'm really excited about, cultural property, all these different things. So regardless of what anyone's background is, I think the best part of this, and you asked me, Harshita, like what I learned mostly is that more than anything is that everybody can be invited to this table and then figure out, based on what they're interested in, how they want to bring the conversation of the rules of armed conflict to whatever they're doing, even if that's just learning about it and then being maybe what's I'm trying to say, like excited to figure out how to be a part of, whether it's other communities that exist or just the story of the Red Cross that year. That's my favorite thing about it, really, is that it's our goal, and it's all of you that have done this so elegantly, is to bring more people to this and say, this is not unattainable. We can all be a part of this. We can all serve this global need and be a part of this bigger movement.
That is so cool. So for you personally, what is your favorite part of IHL?
I think I've already kind of stated it a couple times, but it's working with all of you and being inspired by what everyone's doing on the ground level. I have seen so much creativity come out of this program that's also made it evolve. There's necessary change that we're seeing because you all are pushing the envelope in a way that all of us as the staff are just blown away by. I've seen, I think your team, you guys did a virtual mafia, which is just crazy. I think that was so clever. And my favorite part really is seeing the respectful way that you guys challenge the status quo of how we deliver our mission. This program is peer-to-peer education, but it's since evolved. Even, of course, during COVID, we have to move fully virtually. Now we're kind of back in this, let's go back in person, but let's operate in the opportunities we've created in the virtual space. And I've just seen so much. And it's just so inspiring, because even if you guys don't end up being lawyers or even international relief workers, I hope that you guys have taken the skills that you've gotten to either learn here or hone on your own and bring them to who you're going to be as adults. I think regardless of where anyone ends up, you're all just arguably humanitarians already. And for me to get to see that wherever, you guys end up, that the world is a better place because you've chosen to spend time in this program. And it's been just the biggest privilege to get to see that come to light from all of you guys.
I totally agree with that. No matter where I go, IHL is like always going to be a part of me. And one of the things I personally would like to do is help in a disaster situation firsthand. I find that very fascinating. I was wondering what your experience helping in a disaster relief situation was like.
Yeah. This is the one thing I love about the Red Cross is we touch the mission in different ways. And, if you ask your peers, when you see the Red Cross, what comes to mind? A lot of people will say, right, blood and disaster. They don't really know what IHL is, and I think that's really exciting to be like, well, come learn about this program. But on the other side, now all of you who are involved in the Youth Action Campaign program and are deeply invested in IHL can get to maybe see the other aspects of this because you're all able to volunteer. There might be some requirements, age, and different criteria for getting to deploy. But I would say it's another great honor to be able to participate in the relief of a disaster and kind of moving people back to normalcy. I love that we are basically respected on the same front lines as where frontline workers are in disaster. And it's really important to me to stay in touch with the mission in this way. So I try to deploy as much as I'm able realistically. And I actually just got back from a deployment in Florida for Hurricanes Ian and Nicole. And what's really interesting about this is the hurricane happened over almost 3 months ago. It's not in the news anymore, but the disaster continues to be affecting hundreds of thousands of people. I saw so much devastation, just the visible pictures that we saw a couple months ago of boats just making it on shore and colliding with each other, and they're still sitting there. Homes that were completely destroyed. There was a 15-foot water surge, and entire buildings are probably not even going to be able to be rebuilt. People are completely displaced in some cases, and others, I saw some folks living outside of what was their original home dwelling in tents and in cardboard boxes because they just don't want to leave. So even though the news isn't showing that story anymore, that's what's still going on. And it's beautiful. I think that the Red Cross is still part of this process for all of these folks. Still in this case, it was the Gulf Coast of Florida that was mostly hit. And it's amazing because it's almost like a mini little Red Cross sets up. It's the disaster operation functions as its own little structure. And I shouldn't say little because there are hundreds of people that deploy, both locally and from all across the country. I think at peak, we had almost 800 people down there. And there's all sorts of roles in order to make this operation move forward. Specifically in this one, it was my responsibility to identify where there were pockets of major destroyed or damaged homes and making sure that they had the awareness and the accessibility to some of our resources. So we give, as you all know, a lot of resources, but also financial assistance, which we at this stage of recovery call immediate assistance. And it was our role to make sure that they had the education about what was offered, and then also the access to it in the sense that, yes, we had all of these awesome places stationed all over the counties that were most affected. But we wanted to be really intentional and make sure that it was equitable for some folks that didn't have transportation or that were unable to leave their home dwellings. So we were setting up mobile transits to make sure that those folks were reached, and then maybe even smaller assistance centers that were walkable to their homes. And there's just so much gratitude in all of this. You know, there's nothing more powerful than seeing kind of like the sad tears and feeling of hopelessness turn into happy tears, and thankful tears. And to just get to be a little part of that is so special. And I think the way that to me is connected to what we're doing here in IHL is we tell these stories of people that are suffering from war or armed conflict, that their schools are destroyed, or they've watched their history be destroyed from, you know, the museum being bombed or something. And we might not ever get to know those individual stories, but getting to see that up close in a disaster operation, we have the opportunity to stand alongside someone in their darkest day. And that in, again, the IHL Youth Action Campaign program, it's the same thing. We might not ever meet those people, but hopefully that the world is a little bit better of a place because we're bringing awareness to this. We're helping to tell the truth about the values of this program and the international humanitarian law, the rules of war, to help more people be aware and educated, and maybe think about how they engage or participate in their own local communities, maybe even how they participate as active citizens, whether it's voting or choosing how they want to spend their lives, past the program. Like I said, I don't think every single person is going to be a lawyer or even should be, but it doesn't really go away, and it's the same thing with disaster. Is like those stories and those people and just the sheer number that we are positively impacting. It just stays with you.
I agree. The scope of IHL YAC goes so much more beyond just informing you about IHL. It's about, being a part of your community, helping out. So I know that you touched on this a bit earlier about wanting to be a doctor in your teenage years, but is there one specific moment in your life that made me realize I want to help people?
Well, I told the little story of, when we were in the evacuation shelter and I saw those people, those Red Crossers be serving people blankets and food. And, yeah, just between I was 10, and then, 10 plus years later, I'm in college, and just that has since evolved at that point of how I was going to serve people or what I wanted to do. I think what sticks with me is that we all have unique set of skills and gifts that we're given, and that those also manifest kind of depending on the situations that you find yourself in. And for me, what I love about the Red Cross, and probably why I personally ended up here as well, is that it's such a deeply inspiring place to see what other people are already doing and how they're already using their skills to be a part of this global movement that is recognized. I mean, I think second to the Disney logo, we're the second most known logo in the world. You can go anywhere and it's a trusted brand. And getting to see what people are doing with the privilege of serving in the Red Cross, to me was deeply inspiring. And the idea that you don't have to be a certain trade, have a certain background, or be in a certain trade to be a part of this movement is probably the thing that drove me to think about coming more deeply into not only just nonprofit, but a nonprofit that has a big component of volunteerism that will be welcoming and inviting to people of all skills and backgrounds and interests. And it just makes us a stronger place to be able to have that diverse perspective from welcoming really anyone. It's probably I said, like you said a little bit earlier, Rishi, I maybe wanted to be a doctor, but I think it was really just the impetus there was I wanted to help people, and I didn't know the breadth of opportunities that we had in which we could help people, or what that would look like in an adult career outside of the sciences at a younger age. I think now there's more exposure too for all of you that are exploring different pathways and experiences to learn now to get your hands dirty in a place like the Red Cross, to see what skills do I have, what more do I want to learn, do I want to go into this trade or that trade. But the unique thing I think that helps the Red Cross be so well known and beloved is that if you come here and you have a heart for service and you want to just help people, as that simple statement allows, it can look like whatever you want it to based on who you are and what you're able to bring and whatever needs we have in front of us. It's in this program a little bit more niche in that we have to kind of learn before we start moving forward and growing towards raising awareness about IHL, right? But like I said, in disaster, you can show up, and if you want to help, you can be in the shelters, just being that warm hug, or helping people with setting up a case to be a case worker and help them kind of get back on their feet. There's so many things. And thinking back to just how amazing the opportunity is to think about the Red Cross being the catalyst for me to be able to serve, I think, the way in which I'm able to in this program, or in this particular field of IHL. It's a real privilege.
I understand that completely. So what are just some things that have helped you get where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is being open to new opportunities and maximizing all of those opportunities to the best of your ability. I am a strong believer in being a part of a community, and when I am, to be participatory in that, to be an active listener, to learn from others. I'm constantly learning. That whenever I am showing up in a group, that there's an opportunity to learn a little bit more. I try to challenge myself that no matter what I'm doing, I leave with a little bit of nugget of knowledge from whatever the concept or the thing is that I'm a part of. I mean, even like a movie, trying to get the moral of it and say, like, how is that related to my life? It just kind of helps me build this bigger picture of what it means for me to try to live that like life of service. It doesn't mean, I think, for everyone that you have to work at a nonprofit. But for me, I said I wanted to wake up every day and believe that what I was doing would make an impact. And I think that has helped me be really firm in the next steps that I would take, whether it was before here at the Red Cross or the next step here in the Red Cross, or beyond. Um, to be able to kind of just listen to myself, listen to, that little voice in my head to say, like, you're doing the right thing, but maybe there's opportunity here, or if there's ever chances in front of me to join, whether it's a work group or some kind of new community where I can learn. Like I said, I try to be a life learner. That's definitely something I would advise anybody in, is just to always be like listening outwardly, and then also listening, to yourself, and figuring out what that pathway looks like for you. I think also a big thing is continuing to build your network. And I don't mean, okay, guys, go out and network. Networking is a really, I think, what's the word, like a pigeonholed term that means we have to go out and meet people and tell them our experience and tell them what our job is, and then say, like, what can you do for me? And I think the bigger thing is building relationships in which you can learn from other people and maybe help them along the way, or they help you, because it organically is a good fit. As much as I am part of this IHL team, I am really happy that I have built a really strong network of peers and friends and colleagues here at the Red Cross and beyond in the nonprofit world, that I can learn from other people, that I get advice from, that maybe it's even just keeping in touch and seeing what they're working on, different things like that. I think we're better and we're stronger when we can collaborate and learn from each other, and be a part of something, again, bigger than ourselves.
I completely agree. So who is your role model?
Okay, so I was asked that a couple of days ago as well, and I have a couple people in mind, but not to sound too cliche, because we're talking about the Red Cross. But I really believe in what Clara Barton did, and she's definitely on my short list of role models. And it's not really just because she founded the American Red Cross. I think she stands for a lot of things that, if I was around in her time, I would hope that I'd be brave enough to do. She's very much one of those role models that, when you think about where she came from and where she ended up, there was a lot of barriers, and she didn't let those obstacles stop her. She was shattering glass ceilings all around. I think a lot of people know teacher, nurse, right? But also first woman in a patent office. Like, she was so much a trailblazer. And if we think about the work that everybody's doing in the Red Cross, but specifically what we're doing in the Youth Action Campaign, I'm so inspired, because we have Clara Barton, who has this amazing legacy, and all of you probably don't realize you're trailblazing too. Like, the creative things that you're coming up with, it's maybe not maybe you are going to found your own nonprofit in a couple years or something, but I see that the growth of this program is from you guys. And I think that's all really Clara wanted, was she saw a need and she wanted to serve it. And now all of you are seeing a need and serving it. And I just think it kind of just comes full circle, and it's really neat in that way. She also just, listened to what it means to like be a person and be a humanitarian in a way that it wasn't even defined yet. And I think that's pretty incredible. Henry Dunant was the one who founded the original, the ICRC, and was part of the Geneva Conventions. I think Miss Sidibo talked to you guys about that last time. So Clara was smart enough to also know she didn't want to reinvent the wheel, and she wanted to grow and be a part of this bigger movement and bring the American, chapter to it, which I think is also really smart, that we see opportunities, or that she can teach us to see opportunities in things that are already there and team up and partner with them. And of course, my favorite part about what she does really is humbling, because when we think about how, for her specifically, she was serving, and did not matter which side, right? And that she was like, she saw a need, she saw the suffering, and she was kind of like in that nurse role, serving both sides in the Civil War. But excuse me, that she didn't go up to someone and say, all right, you need to like go off this checklist and you earn, my service. That she did that selflessly and unconditionally. And that it is one of our, kind of biggest principles of going into something with this neutral stance and being impartial and just seeing that need and serving it. Yes, in the context of the Red Cross, we always try to do that. But the thing that kind of sticks with me is I try to live life that way now too. And it's because of Clara Barton, Henry Dunant, and all of us that, we're trying to strive to make this world a little bit more inclusive and bring more humanity where there is inhumanity, specifically, right, with IHL. But that it doesn't just shut off because like work is over or we're done with a campaign. So I try to really live that life of always trying to serve or respond to something despite what my maybe personal beliefs are or opinions are in something. And it's made me, I think it's softened me to realize that we all have opinions and we all have thoughts, but at the end of the day, we're all human. And it's really just innate to want to serve one another and be alongside somebody, in that suffering, regardless of maybe our differing opinions or backgrounds.
That's actually really cool. I was reading about Henry Dunant the other day, and what stuck out to me was that he was a businessman. He was never, a doctor or someone who wanted to serve others. And he went and saw the war that was happening in Italy, and he started a nonprofit organization. That was really neat to me.
Right.
To wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say or give any advice to people who want to be more involved in society as teenagers and the youth in general?
Honestly, I think you guys don't need advice because you are teaching me every day. But if I were to share any kind of parting thoughts, it would be, like I said a little earlier, listen to where your heart is calling you and go in that direction. But take advantage of all the opportunities in front of you. And maybe also don't think of your life as this, linear line that you have to follow a certain path, that you have to go to school for this certain thing and then maybe, right to grad school or get a PhD. If that's your path, awesome. I'm so happy that, some folks have figured that out. But life is like this. Sometimes it goes like this, backwards and forwards and all sorts of stuff. And it's your story. There's no one path to getting to anywhere, especially in the day and age where we have so much accessible to us with technology and connectivity and the community that we have that is now not necessarily just locally, right, in our small communities, but we're able to connect to people across the world, to take advantage and learn and listen, and be really proud of wherever you are, that it's part of your story and part of whatever's next for you to be grateful for and present in, all of those experiences. Because I think, again, life was a lot different when I was your guys' age and when I was in school. But if I could take away that anxiety of, I think I'm supposed to do a certain thing, or I think I'm supposed to be a certain place, I think I would have smiled a lot more and enjoyed the ride a little bit more. So if it's anything, you guys, take a pause, take a beat, take that big deep breath, and be really proud of, the fact that all of you are listening to this tonight or the recording already says like who you are in the world a little bit more than maybe some people have already found. So I think just, embrace who you are and follow whatever your heart says, and you're going to end up in the right place.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your words, most of all. To close our event, we'd like to thank everyone joining us today or by recording. And for more information about our campaign, visit our Instagram page, website, and YouTube channel, which is in the comments below.